I'm sitting in my living room this morning, looking at a stack of eviction notices and property tax bills that arrived in yesterday's mail, and I keep thinking about a newspaper headline I read in 2010. Housing market hits bottom. Time to buy. I believed every word of that article and spent the next 4 years buying 12 houses that I was convinced would make me rich. Instead, they made me a 79-year-old man managing a real estate empire that's slowly bankrupting me one repair bill at a time. I'm Arthur, and I'm 79 years old. And between 2010 and 2014, during what everyone called Obama's economic recovery, I bought 12 rental properties because I thought I was getting in on the ground floor of the next real estate boom. I was wrong about everything: the market, the tenants, the expenses, and my ability to manage multiple properties at my age. Let me tell you how I turned retirement savings into a full-time nightmare that I'll be dealing with until the day I die. The story starts in 2009 when the housing market was in complete collapse. I was 75 years old, recently retired from 30 years as a high school principal, and watching the news coverage of foreclosures and plummeting home prices. My wife Helen and I owned our house outright and had about $400,000 in retirement savings that we'd planned to live on for the rest of our lives. But everywhere I looked, financial experts were talking about the opportunity of a lifetime in real estate. Houses that had sold for $200,000 in 2005 were available for $80,000. Rental yields were higher than they'd been in decades because so many former homeowners had become renters after losing their houses to foreclosure. The Obama administration was promoting programs to help investors buy and renovate foreclosed properties to stabilize neighborhoods. There were tax incentives, low-interest loans, and government-backed mortgages for investors willing to buy distressed properties and turn them into rentals. I started researching real estate investing like it was a part-time job. I read books, attended seminars, and joined online forums where successful investors shared their strategies. Everyone seemed to agree that 2010-2012 was the perfect time to buy rental properties. Prices were at historic lows, financing was available, and the rental market was strong because of all the displaced homeowners. The first property I bought was a 3-bedroom ranch that had been foreclosed and sat empty for 18 months. The asking price was $65,000 for a house that had sold for $170,000 in 2006. I toured it with a real estate agent who specialized in distressed properties, and despite needing significant work, it seemed like an incredible deal. I made an offer of $58,000, which was accepted immediately. With 20% down and a mortgage at 4.5% interest, my monthly payment was about $320. Comparable rentals in the neighborhood were going for $900 to $1,000 monthly. Even after expenses, it seemed like I could net $400 to $500 monthly from the property. Helen was nervous about taking on rental property management at our age, but I convinced her that this was our chance to create additional income streams for retirement. The math seemed simple: buy low-priced houses in decent neighborhoods, rent them to stable tenants, and collect steady income while the properties appreciated back to their pre-crash values. The renovation costs on the first house were higher than expected. What looked like cosmetic issues during the initial inspection turned into major problems once we started working. The plumbing needed to be completely replaced, the electrical system was outdated and dangerous, and there was water damage that required new flooring and drywall in 2 bedrooms. By the time the first house was ready to rent, I'd invested about $25,000 in repairs and improvements on top of the purchase price and closing costs. My total investment was over $80,000, but the house was in excellent condition, and I was confident I could rent it quickly. Finding good tenants turned out to be much harder than I'd anticipated. The first family I rented to seemed responsible during the application process, but they stopped paying rent after 4 months and left the house damaged when I finally evicted them. The second tenant paid regularly, but had multiple pets that destroyed the floors and left odors that required professional cleaning and new carpeting. Despite these problems with the first property, I was convinced that real estate investing was still the right strategy. I blamed the tenant issues on inexperience and poor screening, and I thought the maintenance problems were just bad luck. The fundamental math still seemed sound. Buy distressed properties cheap, fix them up, and rent them for positive cash flow. Between 2011 and 2014, I bought 11 more properties using the same strategy. Each purchase seemed logical and well-researched. I was buying houses for $50,000 to $70,000 that had previously sold for $150,000 to $200,000. I was getting mortgages at historically low interest rates, and rental demand in our area remained strong throughout Obama's recovery. By 2014, I owned 12 rental properties with a total value of approximately $900,000 and total mortgage debt of about $500,000. On paper, I had $400,000 in real estate equity plus the rental income from all the properties. But the reality of managing 12 rental properties at 79 years old was nothing like what I'd imagined when I started investing. Every month brought new problems: broken appliances, plumbing emergencies, HVAC failures, tenant disputes, late rent payments, property damage, and city code violations. I was spending 20 to 30 hours per week dealing with rental property issues, answering calls from tenants about maintenance problems, coordinating with repair contractors, showing vacant units to prospective renters, processing applications, handling evictions, and managing the financial records for 12 different properties. Helen, who was 77 by then, became my unpaid property management assistant. She handled most of the phone calls, scheduled repairs, and kept track of rent payments and expenses. What was supposed to be our relaxing retirement had turned into running a small real estate business that demanded attention 7 days a week. The maintenance costs were enormous and unpredictable. These were older houses in working-class neighborhoods, and they required constant repairs. Furnaces failed in winter, air conditioning units died in summer, roofs leaked during storms, and appliances broke regularly. I was spending $15,000 to $20,000 annually on maintenance and repairs across all 12 properties. The tenant turnover was also much higher than I'd expected. Most tenants stayed for 12 to 18 months before moving, which meant I was constantly dealing with vacancy periods, cleaning and repairs between tenants, and the costs of finding new renters. Each turnover cost me 1 to 3 months of lost rent, plus the expenses of preparing the property for new tenants. Property taxes kept increasing as the local government raised assessments to reflect improving property values. Insurance costs rose annually, especially after a few claims for tenant-caused damage and weather-related repairs. HOA fees in some neighborhoods increased faster than I could raise rents. By 2016, what had looked like profitable rental properties were barely breaking even after all expenses. Some months, the rental income from all 12 properties was less than the total costs of mortgages, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and property management. I was subsidizing my profitable real estate investments with our retirement savings. The stress of managing 12 rental properties was affecting both our health and our marriage. Helen and I argued constantly about tenant problems, repair costs, and whether we should sell some of the properties. I was defensive about my investment decisions and convinced that the market just needed more time to recover fully. Helen developed anxiety and high blood pressure that her doctor attributed to the chronic stress of dealing with rental property problems. I was having trouble sleeping, worried constantly about the next expensive repair or problem tenant, and had lost most of my enthusiasm for real estate investing. The breaking point came in 2018 when 3 major problems hit simultaneously. The furnace failed in one property during a cold snap, requiring a $4,000 emergency replacement. A tenant in another property caused significant damage during an eviction, leaving me with $8,000 in repairs and lost rent. A third property had a plumbing leak that damaged floors and walls, resulting in a $12,000 insurance claim and months of dealing with contractors and displaced tenants. In 1 month, I had $24,000 in unexpected expenses from my rental properties, wiping out nearly 6 months of rental income from all 12 houses. That's when I finally admitted that real estate investing had become a financial disaster rather than the wealth-building strategy I'd intended. I started selling properties in 2019, but the process was slow and expensive. Real estate values had recovered somewhat, but not to the levels I'd projected when I started buying. After paying off mortgages, real estate commissions, closing costs, and final repairs, I netted much less than I'd invested in most properties. Helen passed away in 2020, and I'm convinced that the stress of managing rental properties contributed to her declining health. She used to say that our retirement was supposed to involve travel and grandchildren, not dealing with broken toilets and problem tenants every day. I still own 6 of the original 12 properties, and they continue to be more work and expense than I can handle at my age. I'm trying to sell them gradually, but the market conditions, repair costs, and tenant situations make it difficult to exit quickly without taking significant losses. At 79 years old, I'm still working as a landlord, dealing with maintenance emergencies, tenant problems, and property management tasks that I thought would provide passive income. Instead of enjoying retirement, I'm managing a business that demands constant attention and provides inconsistent returns. Here's what I learned from buying 12 houses during Obama's recovery. Low purchase prices don't guarantee profitable investments. I was so focused on getting good deals that I ignored the ongoing costs and complexities of rental property ownership. The properties I bought were cheap for good reasons. They were in neighborhoods with high tenant turnover, they were older houses that required constant maintenance, and they attracted renters who often had financial problems that led to late payments and property damage. I also underestimated the time and energy required to manage multiple rental properties. What looked like passive income required active, daily involvement in property management, tenant relations, and maintenance coordination. At 75, I thought I could handle it. At 79, it's overwhelming. The biggest mistake was treating real estate investing like a hobby instead of a serious business. I didn't properly research the neighborhoods, understand the tenant demographics, or calculate the true costs of property ownership, including vacancy rates, maintenance expenses, and management time. I believed the hype about Obama's recovery and the opportunity of a lifetime in real estate without considering whether rental property management was something I actually wanted to do in retirement. I was attracted to the idea of real estate wealth without understanding the reality of being a landlord. The 12 houses I bought have provided some rental income over the years, but nowhere near the returns I projected. When I factor in all the time I've spent, the stress it's caused, the health impacts on Helen, and the opportunity cost of tying up our retirement savings, it's been a terrible investment. If you're considering real estate investing, especially later in life, please learn from my mistakes. Don't assume that low purchase prices guarantee success. Don't underestimate the time, effort, and ongoing costs involved in rental property ownership. And don't risk retirement security on investment strategies that require active management when you should be enjoying your golden years. Real estate can be a good investment for some people under the right circumstances, but it's not passive income and it's not suitable for everyone. Make sure you understand what you're getting into before you sign those mortgage papers and become a landlord. At 79, I should be reading books and visiting grandchildren, not dealing with broken water heaters and tenant evictions. That's the real cost of my real estate investing mistake. Not just the money, but the time and peace of mind I can never get back. If this story makes you think about your own investment decisions or retirement planning, I'd love to hear from you. Share this with someone who might be considering real estate investing without fully understanding the realities. And tell me in the comments, what investment mistake taught you the most expensive lesson? Sometimes our worst financial decisions teach us the most about what really matters in life.